Hare Krishna. Thank you for tonight's Bhagavad-Gita class. We are continuing with chapter 18, texts 70 and 71. Adeshyate chaya imam damyam samvara avayo jnanayakyena tenaham ishtasham iti me mati. And I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. So the next verse you please repeat. Śraddhā-vān anasūyaś śṛṇuyād apiyo naraḥ sopi muktaḥ śubhāḻ lokān prāpnuyāt puṇya-karmaṇām. Śraddhā-vān, faithful. Anasūyaḥ, not envious. Cha, and. śṛṇuyāt, does hear. Api, certainly. Ya, who. Naraḥ, a man. Sa, he. Api, also. Muktaḥ, being liberated. śubhān, the auspicious. Lokān, planets. Prāpnuyāt, he attains. puṇya-karmaṇām, of the pious. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. Please repeat after me. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. In the 67th verse of this chapter, the Lord explicitly forbade the Gita's being spoken to those who are envious of the Lord. In other words, Bhagavad-Gita is for the devotees only. But it so happens that sometimes a devotee of the Lord will hold open class, and in that class, not all the students are expected to be devotees. Why do such persons hold open class? It is explained here that although not everyone is a devotee, still there are many men who are not envious of Kṛṣṇa. They have faith in him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If such persons hear from a bona fide devotee about the Lord, the result is that they become at once free from all sinful reactions, and after that attain to the planetary system where all righteous persons are situated. Therefore, simply by hearing Bhagavad-Gita, even a person who does not try to be a pure devotee attains the result of righteous activities. Thus, a pure devotee of the Lord gives everyone a chance to become free from all sinful reactions and to become a devotee of the Lord. Generally, those who are free from sinful reactions, those who are righteous, very easily take to Kṛṣṇa consciousness. The word puṇya-karmaṇām is very significant here. This refers to the performance of great sacrifices, like the Ashvamedha Yagna, mentioned in the Vedic literature. Those who are righteous in performing devotional service, but who are not pure, can attain the planetary system of the pole star, or Dhruva-loka, where Dhruva Maharaj is presiding. He is a great devotee of the Lord, and he has a special planet, which is called the pole star. And I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. Om Aginati Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Brindavanishvare Vrishabhanu Sure Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpata Rupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're coming towards the end of Bhagavad-gītā, chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. And many times we've described how the Bhagavad-gītā is divided up into 81 topics, and we are now covering the last topic, which goes from verse 67 till the end, 78, in which it is being discussed how Arjuna agrees to fight and how victory is assured by Sanjaya. So in text 70, Krishna states that by studying this Bhagavad-gītā, you worship him with your intelligence, which is a very, very important point. Devotional service, is an active, Prabhupada says, a practical service. So we need to engage our body, but we also need to engage our mind and our intelligence. In text 71, Krishna specifically stresses that you need to listen to this Bhagavad-gītā with faith and without envy. This statement of how it has to be without envy is repeated again and again, and many of the speakers have mentioned and discussed about that, and I will try and add a little bit about that as well. And if we hear with faith and without envy, we'll become free from sinful reactions. So in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada explains how faith means to accept Krishna as God, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you can accept that, then that is the seed of your faith. We must hear from the bona fide devotee, and then we become free from sinful reactions and go back home, back to Godhead. And a pure devotee gives everyone the chance to hear this Bhagavad-gītā, and he loves to preach. He loves to bring people closer to Krishna by hearing Krishna's words, because he knows their auspiciousness will come about, their piety will come about, their sinful reactions will be annihilated. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he just only gives a very, very short comment on these two verses. He says about text 7, that this verse speaks of the results of studying this scripture. Studying, it's a very important word here, studying this scripture. And text 71, this verse states the results of hearing the Gita. So studying means a very determined, conscious effort to understand, absorb, and imbibe the teachings. And as we are studying, we have to constantly check, did I concentrate? You know, you can read a sentence, I can read a whole paragraph, and my mind is somewhere completely else, isn't it? And did you actually really read what you were reading? No, because your mind was somewhere else. So studying means to focus, to absorb the knowledge. Did I understand what I just read? And then the next important point is to imbibe it and apply. Can I understand what's being discussed? Have I absorbed it into my heart? And am I willing to abide by it? Meaning I'm willing to act on it. What am I practicing? It's not casually listening and gathering information. There's a new term we are using now, infotainment. You know, we listen a bit from this Maharaj and go to this seminar and a bit from here and from there, and it's just for our own pleasure of hearing. Oh wow, did you hear? That was really cool what he said. But when we're actually hearing, it enters our heart and it has a change in the heart. This purification process is going on and increasing our bhakti sukriti. Like we were saying recently so much, how Kṛṣṇa is teaching us how to think of Him, how to meditate on Him, and how to remember Him. We mustn't be like the mosquito association. You know, mosquito also comes very close to a pure devotee. But it's just a nuisance. It's just causing troubles, you see. So we understand we need to hear from pure devotees or exalted devotees, advanced devotees. But if we're just coming very close and being a nuisance, like what does it mean to be a nuisance? When you're sitting, when you're hearing, where's your mind? What are you really meditating upon? Or then at the end asking silly questions which are not really relevant to the topic, or that reveal that you weren't really concentrating at all. So you're just being a nuisance, mosquito, you see. So where are your desires when you're sitting and listening? Oh, he smiled at me. Oh, I got the mercy. Oh, I'm very sitting up the front. I'm very important. I'm very valuable, you know. Where are your desires in your hearing? I just quickly wanted to mention that about studying and using your intelligence. Using your intelligence, God-given intelligence, right? We say like that. But I wanted to go a little bit in a different direction, because in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada also mentions about Dhruva Maharaj and how he's a great devotee and how he has a special planet called the pole star. And I'll tell you in a minute why I want to go a little bit in that direction. My mood always is to be trying to be appreciative and as much as possible grateful what Srila Prabhupada has given us. And sometimes it's good to remember where we've been, where we've come from. You know, when I was, and how special, how unique is this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, and how fortunate we are to be able to study it. I remember when I was just a young teenage girl, maybe 16 years old, I didn't know about Krishna consciousness. I come from a Christian background, and in a small village in Germany, and it so happened that a distant relative, another family, the grandmother had bought her grandson his first car, which was a big thing because they were not wealthy, but she really loved him, and she gifted him with his car, you know, for his 18th birthday or whatever it was. And unfortunately, this young man, he was irresponsible. He speeded, drinking alcohol and like that, and met it with a fatal accident where he lost his life. So very sad, and it affects, the shock waves of that, because it's just a small community. It reverberates to the whole community, and everybody's in shock, and everybody's very upset, and like that. So anyhow, we're young people, and then you hear something like that. It's very confronting. One moment you're speaking to a friend, and the next moment he's dead. So anyhow, there was a funeral ceremony, and the family belonged to the Protestant church. And the church was packed. So many people were coming, all the families, everybody was sorry. The church was absolutely packed. And the grandmother, of course, was there, and she was crying pitifully. You see, so you can imagine the scene. So I was also there, and the priest, he was having a field day, because you have to understand, the priest wants to fill up his church so he can speak his sermon, to save the sheep, to convince them to keep coming and fill up the church. Membership is very important. So now, since long time, the whole church is so packed, people everywhere, because of this tragedy. So this priest, he took full opportunity of this, and he was speaking so strongly how Jesus died on the cross, he suffered for our sin, and if you don't repent, you go to hell, and you will burn for eternality in hell. And he's speaking like that. And this is true. This is what happens. That is their attitude. They're thinking you have this one life, and if you surrender to Jesus and accept him, then you go to heaven, and if you don't, you go to hell. And that's it. Like that, you see. And I was so shocked. Like I said, I didn't know Kṛṣṇa consciousness at the time. But I was so shocked, and I was so upset. And clearly this priest was just taking advantage of the situation also. He wasn't actually even speaking out of spiritual welfare, to save these suffering people. It really affected me so strong, and it made me doubt the whole philosophy so bad, you see. And I actually left the whole ceremony early, and I was really upset. So having said that, coming back to Bhagavad-gītā, here we're learning, if you hear from the true devotee of God, that means somebody who has love for God, who knows God, then that hearing is also seva, and it will be pleasing to the Lord, and you want to hear more and more. Your taste for hearing about God will increase. It's not this fear-mongering, trying to beat you into submission, but actually by hearing from the pure devotee, your taste of hearing will grow and grow, and you want to hear more and more, and your heart will become enlightened, and you will want to go back home to Godhead to be engaged in your service, you see. So I want to read in contrast of what we have in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Is just so wonderful, in contrast to that scene that I just described to you. My revered spiritual master, Sri Srimad Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj, he gave once a beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam class in Bhubaneswar on this point of the pole star. And he explained it, and you can please read the lecture in a book called, now a beautiful book called Mathura Meets Vrindavan, in chapter 12. But I'll just give you a little excerpt from that, because I've always wanted to share this. He says, in glorification, of Kṛṣṇa and his words and the Bhagavatam, here it's more in relationship to the Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's relevant to Bhagavad-gītā, of course, too, because Bhagavad-gītā is Krishna's own words. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam has appeared here upon the advent of Kali Yuga. The Bhagavad carries a completely new message for the jivas of Kali Yuga. All of the Shastras instruct us to do Bhagavad bhajan. But the Bhagavad says something more than that. The Bhagavad says, hey Jiva, you have no ability to do bhajan. You have no qualification to call him. The Bhagavad says, open your ears, listen to me. How will you call him? You should listen to how he is calling you. His heart is splitting for you. You're not crying for him. He is crying for you. He is calling you. The deity of the Bhagavad is Murlidhar Kṛṣṇa. Murlidhar Kṛṣṇa is holding his flute and calling you. Come to me, come to me, come to me. Are you listening? Have you ears? Sarva Bhuta Manoharam. Krishna's flute captivates the minds of all living entities. You cannot go to him. Therefore, he comes to you. He comes down to this material world to you. Can you see what a big contrast of ideology, philosophy, attitude, the paradigm? You know, God is so loving, so kind. He's anxious, so much so that he knows we don't have any ability. How much can we hear? How much can we apply our intelligence? How much can we do our bhajan? So he's coming here with his words to call us, please. So when we're now, the Bhagavad-gītā marathon is still going. So when we're giving somebody the Bhagavad-gītā, it's not to increase our book scores. It's not to increase our membership. But it's to tell every single one indiscriminately, every person, please look how God is calling you out of love. Please come, get out of this madness of this material world and be finished with your suffering once and for all. The Sarva Bhuta Manoharam comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 21st chapter, verse 6. O king, when the young ladies in Braj heard the sound of Krishna's flute, this is the sound of Krishna's flute, which captivates the minds of all living entities, they all embraced one another and began describing it. And this perfectly describes the community of devotees. Devotees, they embrace one another. They come together with love because they have this appreciation that we are so fortunate that God has called us and we were able to hear something. And now we are gathering together and we are appreciating our good fortune and we're supporting and helping each other. And this is so important. This is so important that we remember that this is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. That somehow or other Krishna is calling us and we're coming together to support each other with love and affection. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter, text 17, in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada says, messages of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna are non-different from him. Whenever, therefore, offenseless hearing and glorification of God are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound, which is as powerful as the Lord personally. And then, as we like to quote, I know Katamisha just mentioned it too a few days back, in the same purport, Prabhupada says, the Lord is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire at all to go back home, back to Godhead. It seems unbelievable, this statement. But you know, in my experience, sometimes giving class, in the Bhakti Shastri courses or in other seminars, I've sometimes just outright asked devotees, so please raise your hand if you're willing to go home back to Godhead. And nobody raises their hand. I'm not joking. Yeah. Like I the first time I did it, okay, raise your hand if you want to go home back to Godhead. I was just being in a happy, jolly mood, you know, and nobody raised their hands. And I said, there's nobody here? And then I understood, it's not probably that they don't want to, but they don't have that faith that it really will be possible for them. And it just seems so far-fetched, you know, and I don't know, so many other thoughts are there. However, if you ask the young children, okay, who wants to go home back to Godhead? Hey, me, everybody puts their hands up, you see, like that.
Right now.
All right. Who wants to go home back to Godhead? Yay! Yeah, exactly right. So what does it mean to go home back to Godhead? You see, what does that mean? Because we recognize ourselves as the eternal servant of the Lord, and we just want to go back and do our seva. Please, allow us to come back to do our seva. Huh? And then Prabhupada says, yes, but those who do have a desire, who have the intelligence, who are intelligent, Kṛṣṇa will help in all respects. Because it's so beautiful. Because sometimes on the path of Vaidhi sadhana, you know, we hear so much about the rules and the regulations, and we must, and the duty, and this and that, and that's all right. However, I just wanted to also present it from the other side, how Kṛṣṇa really wants us to come back, how he wants to love us, and how he is loving us now. He's our most well-wishing friend. We're forgetting him, but he's with us all the time. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 19, text 5 in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about this. He says how Kṛṣṇa is full of all 6 opulences, right? Kṛṣṇa is full of all 6 opulences. Kṛṣṇa wants all living entities to surrender to him. Why? For service, so that he can be satisfied. See, this is where it comes unstuck. Kṛṣṇa becomes satisfied by our service, but are we willing to serve? You see, that's the problem when we might be sitting there and are we listening, but where's my desire? How much do we come to Kṛṣṇa just to fill our desires? But if we know how to surrender to him and give him service for his pleasure, Kṛṣṇa will be satisfied. So our meditation is Kṛṣṇa's satisfaction, not our own. And all Kṛṣṇa is asking for, Prabhupada says, patram pushpam palam toyam, right? He doesn't ask for much. He likes to be the child of Mother Yashoda, who is worried if he's eating enough food or not, if he's hungry. He likes that. It's pleasing to him. Prabhupada says he likes to come even in dreams of devotees. And he tells them, you know, my garden is neglected. It needs some care. Please take care. Please fix it. And Prabhupada says, and sometimes he comes into devotees' dreams. You know, I'm buried somewhere. Please go there and uncover me and bathe me, like with Madhavendra Puri and the Gopal deity. You know, and bathe me. I'm hungry. I'm cold. Right? It's a very personal exchange. Kṛṣṇa likes to be rescued by his devotees. And he requests his devotees to preach on his behalf. Prabhupada says Kṛṣṇa could make the whole world Kṛṣṇa conscious just like that. But he likes to make himself dependent on his devotees to preach on his behalf, to help him. It is said, even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead is endowed with all possession and is self-sufficient, he depends on his devotees. Therefore, the relationship of the Lord with his devotee is extremely confidential. Something very special. It's a two-way system. We always say like that, and we of course understand Kṛṣṇa to be Akhila Rasamrita Murti, no? The form, the manifestation of all rasas. We're here in the material world. We experience affectionate relationships in many different ways. They're there, but they're always flawed with some shortcomings, some imperfections. They're not complete.
Limited.
They're limited, that's a good word, and temporary, like that. However, Krishna embodies all the different rasas, and he can perfectly reciprocate the love of his devotee always, and give complete bliss with that. He's also called Rasika Shekhar, and I looked up some definitions of what means Rasika Shekhar. Anybody here can give something? What means Rasika Shekhar?
The supreme in Rasi.
Yeah, he's the supreme in rasa. In rasa. And anything more? I looked up, and I found he's supremely jubilant. Rasika Shekhar also can mean that Krishna is supremely jubilant. He's the foremost enjoyer of the mellows of love. So he knows how to love perfectly. We all want to be loved, and we want to give love. That's the only activity, the only desire of the soul. We want love. We are hungry. We're starved for love and affection, all of us. And we're very needful to give love and affection. And here it's being encouraged. Place your love with Kṛṣṇa, because he will love you back just perfectly. He will not disappoint you. He will not break your heart. And it will be forever. It will be forever. Like that. He's the master of transcendental mellows. Another definition I found, which Prabhupada gives, which I thought was really nice. The insatiable connoisseur of loving exchange. So Krishna can't get enough. He wants to experience more and more love with his devotees, and that's why he wants everybody to preach and bring more and more jivas to him. He wants that loving exchange. So what makes us qualified for this loving exchange? I just wanted to give a short description of the pot of the heart. Our heart can be compared to a pot. So Krishna wants to fill it with his love. But how much can we receive? How much are we willing to accept? And first and foremost, what are the qualifications of this pot? My Gurudev said, if you milk a tigress, I don't know why anybody would try and attempt to milk a tigress. But he said, if you milk a tigress, because apparently it's very powerful milk, I don't know. You need a special pot to hold it.
Golden pot.
A golden pot even, my. So you need a golden pot to milk a tigress. I dare anybody try it. Anyway, he's trying to make the point. So what to speak of containing prema, containing God's love in the pot of your heart, you see? So that has to be even more special than the golden pot.
I think Mataji, Srila Prabhupada also has given this example.
Okay, nice, thank you. Yes, my Gurudev would only speak whatever Srila Prabhupada taught. So he says the constituents of the pot of the heart are four. They're made up of 4 items. Can anybody guess what these 4 items might be?
Oracles and ventricles.
Pardon?
You are asking of the components of heart, right?
What is this pot made out of? What are the 4 constituents of the pot of the heart? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches. I'll give you a hint.
Humility.
Humility. Essential. Humility, very good. Tolerance. Humility, a devotee must be humble, must be tolerant. And then?
Tolerance.
She said tolerance. Respect, exactly. Humility, tolerance, respect, and? Pridelessness. Pridelessness. These are the constituents of the pot of the heart if we are serious to want to receive Krishna's love. Huh? This point of envy comes up so often. So I just wanted to speak a few words in that direction. Prabhupada, of course, says a Vaishnava is not envious. And why is it so important? Because in Vaikuntha, or in the spiritual world, there is no envy. Why Krishna mentions it so much? Because the material world is the platform of envy. Because it's the prison house where we were sent because we had envy of the Supreme Lord. In the spiritual world, there is no envy. It doesn't exist there. So if you want to go home, back to Godhead, you want to love Krishna and engage in your service, it's essential that you become free from envy. And you have to constantly check yourself. There's a nice incident in Chaitanya Charitamrita where when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled the first time to Vrindavan, we know that this Brahmana, he was meditating and he made the prediction that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not be able to reach Vrindavan this time, he would only come this far. Anyhow, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he traveled as far as Ramkeli, and he specifically went there, of course, because his dear devotees, Rupa and Sanatan Goswami to be, were living there and serving the Muslim ruler. And he actually went there to meet with his devotees. And Sanatan, at that time they were Dabira Kas and Sakara Malik. They even accepted Muslim names, even so they came from a Brahmin Vaishnav family. And they lived very opulently and they were very learned and everything. Anyhow, when they heard the Lord's kirtan and wanted to, they from a distance, because they felt so fallen, so lonely, not qualified at all. From a distance, they paid their obeisances to the Lord. But of course, the Lord welcomed them and embraced them and touched their heads and gave them so much mercy because his heart was melted by their humility. When all the devotees saw the mercy that these two newcomers had just received, it is said, when all the devotees saw the mercy of the Lord upon the two brothers, they were very much gladdened, and they began to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hari Hari. And in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Narottam Das Thakur says, Charya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Payeche Keva. Unless one serves a Vaishnava, one can't be delivered. So to show love to Krishna, we need to love the devotees. We need to be kind to devotees. When a Vaishnava sees another Vaishnava is a recipient of the Lord's mercy, he becomes very happy. And then the two brothers, in reciprocation, they touched all the feet of all the devotees there. Narayani Mataji just quoted a beautiful verse from Devakinandan Prabhu, I think, in her Bhagavatam class at the very end. You know, the mood of a Vaishnava. Let me pay my humble obeisances to all the devotees in the past, in the future, and in the present and in the future. She was saying like that. It's so beautiful. In Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chapter 23, Srila Prabhupada says, devotees of the Lord are not only free from all material envy, but are also kind to everyone in an attempt to establish a competitionless society with God in the center. Because that is the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, God is in the center. There's no competition with each other. There's only a competition, maybe who can love Krishna the most. But Anyway, so Prabhupada wanted a society free from envy. It's a very important meditation. For me, anyway, it's a very important meditation because I catch myself on a daily basis. At least we have to be aware that this trait is there of being envious. What means envious? It can just mean to be extremely judgmental. You know, I'm meeting somebody and I'm smiling. Oh, Prabhu, it's so nice to see you. Or you haven't like that. But in your mind, what are you thinking? Oh, look how he's not taking care of himself, or she's not covering her head with a sari, and oh, he's overweight, or he's this, or he's that, isn't it? We're so judgmental. It sounds banal, but it's a fact. Our mind just loves judging to all the negativity, which is none of our business. We're not here to judge anybody. Leave that to, it's not our lookout. Leave that to Guru and Gauranga. And so we have to catch each other, at least in the devotee community, we have to catch ourselves up. How am I expressing my envy, and how to check it up, how to curtail it. It's a constant habit that we need to develop. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, envy means not being able to tolerate another's superiority, or feeling happy to see another's distress. Like that. You see, because Bhakti-tirtha Maharaj, he explains love, we're talking about the Lord's love, and envy, they repel each other. You know, like when you talk about magnetics, you know, if you have positive and negative, they are attracted to each other, they connect. And if you have two positives, they repel, right? So love, where there is love, there cannot be any envy. And where there is envy, there's no love. You see? In the presence of one, the other can't be there. And the example is given, you know, especially with this fault finding and being too critical. We're using our intelligence, we're misusing our intelligence in the wrong way. It's wrong way, turn back. The example is given of the needle and the sieve. You know, if the sieve is saying to the needle, oh, look at your hole, you've got a hole in your back. Oh, right? But who is the sieve? It's covered in holes. So that's us. We have so many flaws, so many faults. But our mind is constantly, because of this envious environment, especially in Kali Yuga, we've been here since time immemorial, it's so ingrained in us. We so easily fall into that trap, to see the fault, to see the shortcomings in other. And this is what actually attracted me to Srila Prabhupada so much. When I first joined, I understood that his principle was to see the spark, to see that little spark in everyone and fan it and give the empowerment so that this person can thrive and flourish and blossom in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. So that is such a nice mood to have. So Prabhupada also says the most important thing about the spiritual world is that there's no envy among devotees there. Envious people can't think of the welfare of others. And Prahlad Maharaj, he speaks this beautiful verse that we used to like to say on New Year's Eve. You know, New Year's Eve we wish the whole world well, and we're asking for blessings for the new year, isn't it? And he speaks such a nice prayer in the 7th canto, where he says, may be good fortune throughout this entire universe, and let all envious people be pacified. And that pacification can only come if their heart can also feel the love of God. It's really funny, even just in a practical way. I noted that when I was raising my children, you know, when we love someone, they can't do any wrong. Have you ever noticed that? Right? It's like if you, wives with their husbands, He might be a real mischief, and he's maybe even causing them trouble, maybe he's even beating them, whatever. But somebody complain against their husband. Oh, no, it's my husband. How dare you? You see? Or with children, like I had children, and I noted in the families, if two kids get into a fight, from two different families, then of course it's always the fault of the other child, not my child. He cannot do any wrong, isn't it? When we give love to somebody, they can't do any wrong. But if we don't like someone, they can't do any right. You'll see all the bad, 100%. And you'll only remember the bad. And you'll tell everybody about the bad. You see? So many points, but time is running a little bit short. But I wanted to share just one more little nectar, which I found just in regards to this topic of having a loving devotee community, how we need to always focus on that. It's from Sri Madhava Mahotsava, a beautiful poetic book by Jiva Goswami that speaks about the bathing ceremony of Srimati Radharani to establish her as the Queen of Vrindavan. It's a very beautiful, very sweet literature. And in there's, when it came to the Adivas ceremony, there's, all these preparations had been made, and there's this one paragraph. The women begged each other for duties in performing the Adivas. Though one usually ignores others in attaining one's own goal, those aspiring for prema accept dependence on others with similar goals and tastes. Thus, cooperating with each other, they worked together, keeping in mind the goal of prema. So dear devotees, we're all aiming for the same thing, namely to love Kṛṣṇa and to serve Kṛṣṇa. So we always need to help each other. So in conclusion, childlike simplicity is required. Faith in the Lord. With faith in the Lord, we hear the message. Accept our purification. Never mind what's happening with everybody else. Accept our purification. Thereby become free from sinful reaction. Become a pure devotee. Become a true devotee. And engage in loving relationship with the Lord to go home back to Godhead. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity because it inspires me to study Srila Prabhupada's books and use my intelligence in that way. So if anybody has a question.
Mataji.
Yes?
Mataji is in a devotee dress. We shouldn't judge anyone. But one person who is envious of you and jealous of you, what we should do about it?
Oh yeah, well, it's described in the 11th canto Srimad Bhagavatam about Madhyamadikari, no? Envy usually is directed to Kṛṣṇa. That's the root cause. And if somebody is envious towards a devotee, then we avoid that person. Doesn't mean we hate them, and we just avoid them. We don't have a more intimate relationship. We just keep a little distance. We're respectful. We can still be humble and respectful and tolerant, but we just keep a little bit distant because we understand actually the problem is with that person in relationship to his or her with Kṛṣṇa. It's nothing to do with me. And we can pray, and we can see, how to, by our own good Kṛṣṇa conscious example, we can inspire this person to also become purified. Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, here in this verse it is said that those who listens with faith and without envy, they attain to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell.
Yes.
So here it is talked about piety.
Yes.
Right. So normally piety means that activities, good karmas, which
Yes.
we attain by like sacrifices, yagyas,
Yes.
these things.
Yes.
So even so, when we get these piety, when we accumulate all these pious karmas, we can attain to the auspicious planets like which are in the material world, like Satyalok,
Yes.
Taplok,
Yes.
Jnanlok.
Mm.
But in Bhagavatam it is said, Prahlad Maharaj says that there are 9 kinds of devotional services, which begins with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. So why Kṛṣṇa is underestimating the importance of hearing? He could have said that those who attain with faith and without envy attains to my planet.
He is saying to encourage everyone, and you see there's different degrees of faith. There's different degrees of faith. There's Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam. No? So according to the degree of your faith, you can have faith in these karma-kandiya activities and just increase your material piety. But I didn't want to discuss that because we're not interested for that. We don't want to go to the higher planets of the righteous. So I didn't really enter that into the discussion, because when we are speaking, you're saying, like Prahlad Maharaj is saying, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. He speaks about the 9 processes of devotional service. And that faith there means to have faith in Kṛṣṇa and his pure devotees, to surrender in devotional service, in bhakti. You see, not in karma or jnana, but in bhakti, in pure devotional service. So I was discussing more in that direction.
Mataji, you were discussing in that direction, but what you mean to it? But I'm actually confused with this verse. If Kṛṣṇa is what to give encouragement to us, then he could have encouraged us to come to his own planet, rather than telling that, okay, one who listens about me will
Yes.
go to auspicious planets, so that anyone can anyhow reach by doing all these pious activities. But when we are hearing about Kṛṣṇa, he should have said that, okay, you will come to my planet.
But he's already said all of that. He's already said it so many times.
Okay.
He's already said it so many times in in the 8th chapter, in the 9th chapter, in the 12th chapter. He's already said it so many times. Here's just a rounding off generalization. It's not that he's discouraging you or deviating you. He's already told so many times. Arjuna knows. Am I answering correctly? Somebody has a better answer? Yeah, it's correct, no? He's,
If I could,
pardon?
I wanted to add, if I could,
Yes, please.
that, I believe Kṛṣṇa was giving slowly the processes to Arjuna so that he could accept, but seeing that he was ready to something else, he was giving more knowledge, because there are different people in different paths.
Yeah.
So people will take different.
But we are at the end of the Bhagavad-gītā. It's the end of the Bhagavad-gītā, and Krishna's already spoken the most confidential knowledge to Arjuna, and Arjuna has already accepted and agreed. You see, so there's no worry. Yeah, he's already given everything, and Arjuna has accepted. All right. Prabhu, you have a question?
In this last sentence, who are not pure devotee can attain the planetary system of the pole star.
Yes.
Or Dhruva Loka, where Dhruva Maharaj is a great devotee of the Lord.
Yes.
Saying, why this word is mentioned in the last?
Well, that's exactly what he asked exactly the same thing. You see, so why this is being given? I wished I had exactly the right answer. As what I understand is, it's a question of encouragement, that it's for everyone. Arjuna, don't worry. Because Prabhupada before says that Bhagavad-gītā is only for devotees. Just in text 67, he says this Bhagavad-gītā should only be spoken to non-envious people. Right? Actually, I get some idea now. You see, the point is, in Bhagavad-gītā, Kṛṣṇa actually demands first to become a pure devotee. Right? And then he will accept you. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is more merciful. He says, just chant and I'll accept you. You see? He doesn't make that demand. That's why Kṛṣṇa had to come again as Lord Chaitanya to show by his own example, and indiscriminately he would accept everyone. So Prabhupada says here that this Bhagavad-gītā is really actually only for the devotees. But then because that's the devotees are more compassionate than the Lord. So then even if somebody is still on this karma kandya path or gyan path or yoga path, never mind, let them hear Bhagavad-gītā. That's what he's saying, because it will benefit them too. So this is in regards to having an open class, right? Here we are all devotees, but devotees go out preaching in schools and colleges and whatever, and you don't know who is a devotee, who is not. There are many materialistic people who will be there. But still, the Bhagavad-gītā is so valuable that we speak it everywhere, all times, and in the hope that people will be purified. And then even if they don't immediately come to the point of bhakti or full surrender to the Lord, the piety will be there. I hope I'm answering it right, like that. So somebody can correct me, please, and give a bit more of a clear answer. The message I'm getting is that it's so merciful. It's so merciful, and we should just be very, very grateful and appreciative, because even, can we actually really think ourselves as a devotee? Am I really a devotee? What does that really mean? What does that mean? You know, I can honestly tell you, I don't know this process of bhakti. I don't know bhakti. I know the material world. I know how to enjoy or try and enjoy. I know the suffering in this material world, but I don't know bhakti. Bhakti is only in the spiritual world. How do I know? I'm in the material world. I'm tatashta jiva. What do I know? You see? How do we really know the process of devotional service? It's only by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Janas that we have some idea, and that they're encouraging. You know, my Gurudev would say, your disqualification is your only qualification. And that's a fact. Like we were just reading it, what Prabhupada said, what bhajan can we do? If you're saying Prahlad Maharaj and the 9 process of devotional service, can you really apply all those 9? Or at least 1 properly? How much are we hearing? How much are we doing kirtan? What is the quality of our hearing, the quality of our kirtan? Isn't it? We're all really mercy cases. So we just, count our lucky stars, how they say, and consider ourselves very fortunate, and let our hearts be filled with this mercy, and share it with others, and encourage others, and be very, very kind. Be always very kind to each other.
Don't be envy.
Don't be envious. No, it's not a good thing. Okay, thank you. Prabhu.
Just adding your wonderful conclusion. In this morning Bhagavatam class also, Brahma is speaking same words.
Yes.
Brahma is like
yes. Yes, exactly. And he's the first progenitor, right? He's the creator of the material worlds, and he made such a mistake. I mean, the very first time I remember reading this story, what? Hello? He's got 4 heads. He's created all this universe, and he couldn't recognize Kṛṣṇa. He made such a blunder. Well, maybe there's some hope for me. Right? Isn't it? No, really. I just said that today to somebody else. Like, I love reading Mahabharata. Why? It makes me feel really good watching them mess it up. You know, all the mistakes and the troubles and the confusion and miscommunications and this and that. I'm thinking, wow, I'm doing all right. You know, if Yudhisthira can be bewildered, you know what I mean? I mean, of course, it's all Leela and it's for us to learn, but it's encouraging, you know, so that's why it's not difficult to be humble, actually, because we're so small. What do we know? I don't know bhakti. I don't know how to practice bhakti. Guru will teach me. That's all. Like that.
This is for devotees only, Brahma, Vimoha and Leela.
Yes.
To teach us.
Yes. So anyhow, Krishna consciousness is wonderful and it's the best. Yes, Prabhu?
Here that everything here is a perverted reflection.
Yes.
In material world.
Yes.
This applies to the envy also?
Yeah, there's no envy in the spiritual world. So Prabhupada says it's like a tree standing on the banks of a reservoir of water, right? The roots are going down and the tip of the branches is up. But when it reflects in the water, then what is the highest becomes the lowest, you know, and what is the lowest becomes the highest. So when we read about the Lord's rasa dance with the gopis, right? And these intimate, affectionate dealings of kissing and embracing and dancing. Krishna is dancing with these young, beautiful girls who ran away from their husbands, who left their babies, who stopped serving their elders, who left the milk boiling on the stove, right? It's completely irreligious. It's completely against all Vedic Dharma. But in the spiritual world, in relationship to Krishna, it becomes the highest. He played his flute, Murlidhar. He's there under the Vamsi Bhat tree, right? We can go there now. He plays his flute there, and they all heard. Not everyone gets to hear, you know. They heard Krishna's flute, and instantly they dropped everything and ran to be with Krishna, to engage what Prabhupada says seems like lusty affair. But what is the most abominable activity? If a wife leaves her husband in the middle of the night to go with some lover, that's the most degraded, the most abominable activity. But in the spiritual world, because actually everybody, they're all wives of Krishna, everybody is a part of Krishna, right? Then when they're apparently leaving their husbands and running away to be with Krishna, it's the highest activity. Actually, Yoga Maya did it in such a way that the husbands, their body was still lying there, so the husbands didn't even know they had gone. You see? Like that. So that is what is meant by upside down. So how this material world is saturated with envy and pride and lust and anger and all these not so nice qualities, the spiritual world is just the opposite. There's no anger, there's no lust, there's no enmity, there's no competition, there's no envy, like that. Anything more? I think Hare Krishna. Yes, or Prabhu wants to say something more.
Ask a question. So as our consciousness starts, start being aware, we start seeing how there's so much part of so much exploitation in this world and creating so much violence in this world, just by the way we live and so on. And that seems helpful in devotional service, in cultivating community, in cultivating approaching Krishna. At the same time, how does one see everybody else in the society who's also part of that and not
Yes.
be judgmental and not be...
Yeah, we have to practice compassion. We always have to practice compassion. That's the quality of a devotee. is that somehow or other I've come to this path, this knowledge and information has come to me, and now I want to share it with everyone. I want to help them. We have to have compassion. You know, that's an essential quality. That yes, we see the sufferings of this world, but we don't become depressed or morose or feel sorry for ourselves or feel like, oh yeah, well, I'm safe, I'm not going to worry about the rest of the world. No, I mean, what as our capacity allows, as our skills and allow, we should always think how to serve Mother Nature, how to serve this planet Earth, how to serve our fellow creatures, the animals, how to serve other people as best as we can. And not just to collect our piety points, brownie points. No, we have to have this true compassion that actually this is Krishna's creation. This belongs all to Krishna, it's his property. And let me give some service, because it's not possible to directly approach Krishna in our conditioned state. So the best way is to serve the devotees and Krishna's creation. Let me pick up that garbage. Let me feed that cow. Let me help that old lady. That's how we're thinking. Let me speak truthful and pleasing words to whoever I meet. And be a good example of what it means to be a recipient of God's mercy. Like that. Okay.
You said of the infotainment.
Infotainment, yes.
Actually, in our society also, everywhere we have so much information, tons of information.
Yes.
But you said we are just hearing, but actually, it's at least it is satsanga. It is better than kusanga, means bad association. At least it is better.
Oh yeah, no, you're misunderstanding. Okay, of course, yeah, go ahead.
So similarly, because at least it feeds us with knowledge.
Yes.
The satsanga feeds us. So one class also I heard that only sense gratification devotee is allowed. I think I heard is prasadam. You can still enjoy it, like a secondary enjoy. Krishna is the primary. So something like that. So hearing also, some people it's better than doing something nonsensical,
Of course. Better to hear than, watching some movies or something, isn't it? So at least you're hearing. But the point was, hear with a purpose of purification and for the pleasure of Guru and Gauranga. Because there can be, we have to just check ourselves. I think it was clear, no? Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.